Welcome back, everyone, to the Couples Edition with Alli and Elie. Today, we'll be diving into something that we feel strongly about, which is not wasting time dating the wrong people.
We got engaged after only 3 months of dating, so obviously we wasted no time.
No time.
And while we don't recommend that as something that's normal for everyone, there's definitely some key takeaways of how we went about it that we think are incredibly relevant to normal paces of dating that might be useful and maybe even a little bit juicy on how we did it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think when it comes to dating, we believe in this idea around intentional dating. And we believe that you should be really clear about what you want and what you believe in to find the right partner. I think it should be like basically hiring someone for a job. And when you're hiring for a job,
here he goes.
Well, this is the most important job you're going to hire for is your wife, your spouse, your husband. So you might as well be extremely intentional about it. And the way that I like to think about it is understanding what exactly you want in that job description. That's the first thing. Secondly is thinking about all the big F's in your life, society, in the world, family. How do they view family, faith? What do they believe in? Financially as well too. How do they see money? And fitness, which is growth. It's not just physicality and how they look, but it's also growth as well.
Yeah, we're diving right in, which is exactly what you did the first time we ever met on a FaceTime call. If this is a dive into an episode, you dove in even harder the first time we met, literally an interview. And most people would disagree with that strategy. But we believe life is way too short to waste it on the wrong people. And we both wanted to get to the point. If we weren't a good fit, we weren't going to be a good fit. Let's figure that out early before we get all cutesy and fall in love and then realize we want completely different things in life.
Exactly. You definitely want compatibility and romance. But more importantly, you want to think about compatibility early. So for me, I feel like when it comes down to finding someone, if you're not interviewing your partner or interviewing whoever you met on some dating app or from a friend, I think you're setting yourself up for potential failure and disappointment.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to interview for a job that you have for maybe a year or two, why wouldn't you essentially interview the person that you want to spend the rest of your life with? If you hire a bad spouse,
that's decades.
That literally sounds terrible. And I think for me, one of the reasons I wanted to be so intentional is because I had seen so many bad marriages that I did not want.
Yeah.
And no offense to my parents. They've been married over 40 years. So much respect and shout out to them.
Yeah.
But they had a hard marriage and a hard road to get there.
Wow.
And growing up watching that just made me so steadfast on I will not settle because I don't want to be in something that looks that miserable.
Yeah, I totally agree.
It's so interesting living in a city like San Francisco because I think it's much more common to date for fun and, look for a good time, going out to bars and clubs and just trying to have a good time. Which, to each their own, I don't think that's wrong necessarily. It depends where you are in life, if you're not looking for something serious.
Yeah.
But for me, I never wanted to waste time on the wrong person. I would have rather been living my best life, maybe solo, than getting bogged down in feelings and attachments to somebody that ultimately wasn't who I wanted to end up with.
Yeah, I totally agree. And again, that's why you have to figure out how to narrow down your scope of people, right?
Knowing what you want.
Exactly. And the best way to do that is to create a list.
That's a great point because it's so funny how we both came into meeting each other having pre-created lists, but I don't think that that's common.
No, it's not normal.
So why did you create a list? Where did you get the idea? What inspired you to make a list?
Honestly, I think the first thing was accountability. I think the first thing for me was understanding what do I want and how do I hold myself accountable to those things? Write them down, right?
I love that about you.
The second thing was also to share it with a friend. If my friends and I are talking about dating and girls that are in the city, well, I can tell them all about my dream girl and maybe they have a friend that, is in that realm. But then the next thing is also to rule out bad apples. You don't know how many times people just date anyone without really being able to filter out the bad ones. So if you have a list, it's super easy to filter out the bad apples in dating. That would be, my initial take. on why I created my list. What about you? You had a list.
Yeah. For me, I had actually heard somebody, they were older and talking to, I think, a group of my friends saying like, well, how do you guys know what you're looking for in dating if you don't have a list? And we were all kind of like, what do you mean a list? What is a list? And they were explaining how when you're dating, you should be looking for the things that you want in a partner. And if you haven't already articulated that somewhere, put it down on paper, spent time thinking about what an ideal or dream partner would look like for you. Yeah. How will you know when you see it if you've never thought about it? And that's something that I've encouraged some of my friends to do too, who are dating and have come back. Last week, we talked about people who are like, oh, they were nice. They pulled out my chair. But I encourage them to say, like, one, where are you going in life? And what type of person would align with that?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the type of things you should be asking yourself when making a list. Yeah. When I heard this idea to make a list, I think I went home that night and was like, okay, let me think what I want. And I wrote down a list. And over the years, I, probably wrote a few more in whatever journal I was using at the time and adapted it. But then when a dating experience would happen that I either liked or didn't like, I would go back to either that list or start another one and add those things in there. Oh, awesome. So I think one of the last people that I was interested in before I met you, they were so wishy-washy, unintentional, like acted like they liked me and then didn't talk to me for a week. And I left that situation thinking, I hate having somebody play with my heart and not be clear. Like, do you like me? Do you not like me? So when all of that ended, I went straight to my list and I wrote intentionality. I want somebody that is going to be so clear with how they feel about me. They will shout it from the rooftops and make it so abundantly clear what's happening and what they think, which is exactly what you did. I will never forget when you asked me to be your girlfriend. We were standing on my rooftop in Russian Hill in San Francisco. And in your little speech you gave me, I didn't know it was coming. I don't know if you knew. I didn't expect it necessarily. I thought we were just going to have a cute moment at sunset. Yeah. But I remember you saying, I want to be so clear about my intentions with you. I don't want there to be any gray space. I think those were your exact words because I remember when I heard them, they were almost carved into my heart because that was something so high on my priority list that I wanted somebody to be so intentional. And then you were so bold about sharing it with everybody and even sharing to me how soon you knew that I was your wife or whatever. It was just never in a moment did I ever doubt how you felt about me. And that was so healing. Honestly, I think that's how it should be. Like, I know that's just me personally, something I wanted, but I hate hearing stories about people who are throwing people around and being so unclear and unintentional with them.
I'm such a good guy.
You are, honey.
Something else about lists is deal breakers. Not enough people have deal breakers. Not enough people have a list of things that they cannot put up with. So they put up with everything, which is unbelievable.
Crazy.
Think about walking into a job or a job interview and they don't care about your experience. They don't care about your resume. They're just willing to take whoever. I would not work at that company if they're just willing to take whoever. So I feel like people should have more deal breakers. So when you see those things that are automatic red lines or red flags, walk away.
I just knew you were going to bring up a job description. If there is one thing that you are going to bring up when we talk about dating, it's going to be a job description. From interviewing people to having a clear list of what you should be hiring for. The amount of times I've heard you refer to picking a spouse as hiring for a job. It's crazy.
Wait till you hear about how I fire people and do layoffs.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, not great. But it needs to happen. People don't fire or lay off enough of their boyfriends or girlfriends.
They really don't.
You got to fire them.
So I mentioned using some of my real life experiences on things that I put into my list. How did you make your list?
I feel like a really good framework for creating a list consists of like looking at the body. I don't mean physically. I just mean metaphorically. From top to bottom. So the head, for example, how does someone think, right? Go from top to bottom, from head to toe. The head, how do you think? How do you view the world? The eyes, I just said it. How do you view the world? How do you view friendships? How do you view money? How do you view things? How do you see things? And then speaking, the mouth is like, how does this person conduct themselves? How do they speak? Are they kind? Are they gentle? Are they funny? Right? All these things come out of the mouth. And then you go down to the heart, which is, what does this person really care about? What does this person really hold on to? Right? Are they a family person? Are they a career person? Are they adventurous with kind of like loosey-goosey, no goals in mind? Which is fine, but just thinking about some of these things. And then I like to go down to like, the hands, which is like your social life, everything you're touching. Is this person into a lot of hobbies? Are you into a lot of activities? If you are, that plays a role into your relationship and how you shape all those things together.
Is their love language physical touch?
Yeah, exactly, right? And then I would say the last thing for me is going down to, let's call it the legs. Where are they going? Where are they moving? This could be, where are they going financially? Where are they going with their career? These are really important things that you should probably figure out and try to learn about someone if you're going to spend time with them. So I think those, for me, is like the fundamental things that I would try to add to a list, are all those things that, you could metaphorically think from head to toe would be important to hear about someone.
Is that the strategy you actually used? Because I've never heard you use that analogy before. And so I'm like, is that some deep thing you just came up with? Or is that actually how you made your list? Did you draw out a little stick figure of a body and like slowly work your way down?
Right. Well, transparently, it's something that makes sense to me. And I did kind of just like put it together. But it's, I think, subconsciously how I think about people, which is as a human, as your body. Yeah. And so I'd say it's rather new, but something that I've used without even knowing that.
Helps you articulate what you did, even though you might not have visualized that before.
Sure. But I thought about all those different things.
Right, for sure.
But it's a good framework for you out there if you want to think about how to put together a list. Use the body framework.
Draw a little stick figure and work your way down.
Exactly.
On the things that are internal, not necessarily external.
Yeah.
External things can be nice to have, but let's remember that everybody ages and, it's definitely less important in the long run.
What about you? What else did you add?
Well, before we go to me, I want to dive a little deeper into your list because something I loved when we were dating, I'm trying to think how long into dating it was. It was definitely before we got engaged. Yeah. So maybe a month or two. Maybe 2 months into dating, I don't know what prompted you. I don't think I asked, but you read me your list from your phone and explained how I checked each box.
That's amazing.
Do you remember that?
I did do that.
Do you want to share what maybe some of the boxes were that I checked?
Yeah, for sure. I think some of the boxes that Alli checked were being open-minded. That was really important. So the way that you think. Having a growth mindset.
Yes, yeah. Growth mindset. Let's pause there for a moment because when I think about marriage and whenever I'm talking to single friends about things to look for in a partner, I think one of the number one things I bring up is marrying somebody, dating somebody, whatever, who is growth minded. The way that you grow just in life and in marriage, if you're not growth minded and you're not always trying to be better and grow and evolve, it's going to be really hard staying together in the long run.
Yeah.
Even in the 3.5 years we've been married, we have grown and changed so much.
Oh my goodness.
I recently heard a quote that said to love somebody a long time is to attend 1 million of their funerals of who they used to be. And that resonated so deeply with me because I think about who we were our first year of marriage. No cares, no budget, balls to the wall.
Yeah.
We were crazy. And then year 2, we were traveling and you started working on being an engineer is that what it's called?
Yeah.
An engineer? I don't know why that sounds so funny.
I know.
I thought like structural engineer. But anyways, you were working on getting a freaking another degree and like things just kept changing and we've evolved even in how we've lived life and not necessarily the long-term goals haven't changed, but I think who we are as people as we dive into those have changed. Yeah. And I think one of the ways we've been able to adapt so well in each different season is that we're continuing to want to grow and get better together.
I totally agree with that. I think something else that was on my list was also really important, which is career. I wanted to date someone that was a high achiever and someone that a lot of talent, but also someone that thought about their career and money in the same way that I did, because I think that there are a lot of people who get married and have different visions on what a career means and how to spend money from this precious career they had. And I love that you had a career that, one, was a high earning career, but two, you also viewed it as...
Married me for my money?
Oh yeah, I did. I'm a gold digger. People don't know that, but I'm a gold digger. But I think it's really important that you had a career that was very compatible with my career, meaning we were both able to spend time together. You find a lot of people who they date, they get married, and they're both lawyers, and that's fine, but their work and their life just clash so much. But for me, I wanted someone that ideally had the same flexibility that I had while still getting the benefits of being a high earner.
I think that's actually something to talk about in regards to lists is money, because I heard this quote recently on a podcast I was listening to that said, I think in 2025, more women are graduating college than men. And the problem with that is most women only want to date somebody that is more successful than they are, if not at the same level. And so if more and more women are graduating college and maybe getting high earning careers and less men are, if that's the trajectory it's going, you know, it leaves this gap of you can't always have that. And I think something that's interesting for us is, while I agree career was important, I don't think the current status of the career was important as much as the goals and trajectory that somebody was on.
Of course.
Because when we met, and I'm sure we'll talk about this more in a finance episode, we were not making the same amount of money.
No, we weren't.
You weren't making as much as I was.
I wasn't.
And that honestly didn't deter me. And I think it would have for a lot of people.
Yeah, you didn't mind being a sugar mama.
I knew where you were going. I mean, up front, you have 3 college degrees. You have your MBA. It's just insane. But your career strategy was to bounce around at a lower level to figure out which track you wanted to be on to then climb. And I really respected that. And when you explained it, like the fact that you had more degrees than me and were making less money than me and working harder, quite frankly, when we met, you were working so many more hours than I was. And I was like, man, you are significantly underpaid. I am not working as hard as you, and I'm making way more money. With all that said, I understood where you were and why. And it wasn't a concern to me that I was making more money.
Yeah.
I think when you get married and then talking about merging finances or whether or not you do, you know, everybody, well, let's deep dive into that on an episode, because that is a great topic. Yeah. But I think career-wise, it's more important where somebody is on the path to going than where they are currently. Yeah. And one of the things I loved most about you regarding career and finances was your dream of what you wanted to build with your life that was so much bigger than a career. Yeah. It obviously encompasses the career bucket, but it was not only so much bigger, but we shared the same desire for generosity.
Yeah, exactly.
Both of us have the desire to be wealthy in order to give more.
Yeah.
And that was something that was high on my list, that I really wanted somebody who aligned with my generosity perspective, that was okay giving away one day, hopefully millions of dollars.
Yeah, exactly.
And not somebody that just wanted to build wealth just for the sake of building wealth.
Yeah.
I wanted somebody that was aligned on that overarching vision.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine being married to somebody that didn't have that.
Yeah, you're a great stock investor. You bought it low. You're not going to sell because I'm going to stick around. But you're going to ride. You're going to ride the.
I'm riding
upside.
your stock up, honey.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah, and shortly after, I guess, just to go back to anybody who's like, "Oh my gosh, I could never date somebody who makes less than me." It was a couple months into marriage, you almost doubled my salary. You switched companies and then started making way more than me. You had like I don't even know what the percentage was of your salary, but it was a joke what you were making at your last company. And then you started somewhere else and your stock went shoop.
Yep.
I was like, oh, you can be sugar daddy now.
And then I quit my job and then my stock plummeted. But we're still together, right?
Yeah, we're in this for the long haul.
Exactly. In hip love.
Yeah. Let's do a rapid fire segment on how not to waste time on people by being mindful of red flags.
Yeah.
I'm deep into TikTok and I constantly see people sharing dating stories that have the most glaring red flags.
Oh man.
And then you read the comments and everybody's like, why did you stick around for so long? Yeah. And I think there's just some common ones that a lot of people might not look out for that they should.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first one is super easy. This one is for the guys out there. I think it's the unrealistic expectations that some women have around a man's like financial situation, especially with his age as well, right? Some women are expecting guys to make $500,000
investment banker salaries
or $500,000 at age 25, but also have all the time in the world.
Yeah.
And that's just ridiculous. So when you see people like that, that's an easy red flag to note down. What about you?
Can we also pause on that one, though? Because I think there's a lot of women, and I actually might go against the grain with this one. So sorry to my ladies who feel this way. But I think a lot of women expect to be wined and dined in a relationship where the man foots the whole bill.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that's realistic.
I know.
I mean, even with the stat I gave earlier about more and more women becoming more college educated, I just think not divvying up expenses in a way.
Yeah.
Like, I think when we went to dinner, I think once we were engaged, because I knew I made more, I think I started putting down my card more just to help you out because I knew. Think so? Yeah, I do actually.
Really?
I thought we talked about this.
That way. Yeah, no.
Yeah, I feel like when we were in New York for a month while we were engaged, I feel like I paid for almost all of our meals because I didn't want you to have a financial burden because I knew I had extra money to use. And I assumed that based on how much smaller your salary was, that you probably didn't have a ton of extra and we were eating out like every night. And because I knew we were getting married, it wasn't like a mine versus yours. I just saw it as ours.
Oh, awesome.
And so I kind of wanted to not put any pressure on you.
Yeah.
So I felt like I paid for a little bit more. But I think a lot of women expect the man to pay for everything.
Yeah.
And I just think that is, for me personally, I expect a man to treat a woman like a queen.
Yeah.
But I don't think that necessarily means they pay for everything.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think that means you go out on dates and they always put their card down. I think it should be more 50-50, to be honest. And I don't know if that's controversial. I just think that's realistic to me.
This is not the economy for a guy to pay for everything. This is not it. Maybe a few years back, but now is not the time.
I will say though, don't nickel and dime people. I went on a date with somebody once. I think we were dating at that point, and I remember he Venmo'd me for like half of the date, and I think it was like to the penny. He didn't like round up to like 52. It was like 51.46, and I just thought, ugh, that gave me a little ick. That was a bit of a red flag.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I feel like you were doing that just to share because we were just, we were engaged. So I thought you were just kind of
I was just worried about putting pressure on you because I didn't want you to have to worry when I knew it wouldn't have made a difference to me.
Oh, no. See, that's how much money you're making. Wouldn't it have even made a difference for you? I love that.
How much money I was making, but also how I managed my money.
You were smart with your money.
So we'll get into that.
What's another red flag for you?
A red flag for me is men who are uncommittal. I've heard so many stories about people being like, yeah, he's just not ready for something serious right now. That means he's not ready for something serious with you. Yeah. Anybody that says they're not ready for something serious, they might actually believe that in their head, but it's because they haven't met the right person.
And if they met the right person.
Yes, if they met the right person, that could change in a minute. And anybody, especially women who stick around with somebody that isn't ready to commit, they are just dragging you out and they are getting benefits that they don't yet qualify for, which I'll just go into another red flag.
Yeah, exactly.
Is men who expect wife privileges without wife commitment.
Yeah, you got to walk away from those guys.
They want things that they can't have. I just heard this crazy story of a girl on TikTok who went like above and beyond for this man that she had been dating almost a year for Valentine's Day. She got him all these gifts, made him dinner, did all these things. Yeah. He didn't even say Happy Valentine's Day to her, let alone get her anything. She walked away thinking like, oh, maybe he forgot it was this weekend and thought it was next weekend. And then next weekend comes and also nothing. And she said she stayed with him for another year and a half. And everybody in the comments was like, girl, he couldn't have been more clear how he feels about you. Yeah. Like when people show you who they are, believe them.
Yeah, they're showing you. I think one of my big ones, honestly, is poor communicators. People who just don't know how to communicate. And I get it. Like some people are shy, some people are a little bit more reserved. I get it. But for me, I feel like if you are an adult and you're dating other adults, which you should be, I feel like you should be able to have adult conversations that are productive and that are honest and that are, quite frankly, somewhat direct. So many people have these indirect ways of communicating where they don't text you back and that means something.
They're trying to send you a sign or a message.
Exactly.
Without
or they're
saying
hoping
it.
you read their mind and they're hoping you can see things the way they see things. And the way I see it is if someone just can't communicate with you, then that's probably a really easy red flag to notice and walk away.
Especially because if you can't communicate while dating, you're screwed in marriage.
Oh, yeah.
Because marriage is primarily a test of communication and how well you can communicate your needs, your wants, your expectations.
Exactly.
And if somebody is just flunking that while dating,
lay them off.
Oh, yeah.
Fire them.
Fire
them.
Fire
Not in marriage,
them.
though, because you got to stick together forever.
Yeah.
But if you're dating, lay them off.
Well, that's why it's so important to have a list or a job description to put somebody up against while dating.
Exactly.
So you don't have to get to a point in marriage where you're like, oh, I should have picked better. I have a favorite quote, and I can't remember it off the top of my head, but it's something along the lines of, I'd rather wait for something than wish I had waited.
Yeah.
And that fear of being stuck with somebody, wishing I had waited for something better, I think is one of the main reasons I didn't date that much, because I was like, I don't want to settle. And I'm so afraid of being with somebody that is going to make me wish I had waited. That is such a scary thought.
Such a bad feeling.
And so many people, when we tell them our story about, you know, how you interviewed me on our first call or just how we got to the nitty gritty really quick, I feel like a common response is, oh, that's so unfun.
Yeah, that's boring. That's so professional. It's so uptight.
Yeah, like where's the fun in that?
Yeah, I mean, what's the fun in divorce?
What's the fun in being legally bound to somebody that isn't a good match for you?
Yeah.
That sounds way more unfun than me. I'd rather check off a few boxes and then we can party and have a great time and be all cutesy before being all cutesy first. And then I start to see red flags. But at that point, I'm too deeply in love and too attached to you to be like, oh, he'll change. Or you start making excuses for the person because your feelings are blinding your judgment, which is another reason I think bringing the person you're dating around people close to you and really listening to their feedback. One of my ex-boyfriends, after we broke up, my closest friend, I think two of them actually, told me that they didn't like him and that they were so glad we broke up. And I thought, oh, you saw it that whole time? Why didn't you tell me sooner?
That's crazy.
How scary.
That's why when you apply for jobs, they have you meet the whole team.
The whole team, yeah.
So everyone can get an idea on who this guy or girl is walking into the team or the company, right? I mean, not to say that your friends should be decision makers.
Of course.
But they should have some input, because there are some things that you might not see, and there's some things that they honestly may have a better perspective on because they're your friends and they have different thoughts and ideas.
Yeah. And ideally they know and love you so they can see, are you different around this person in a worse way? Or is this person treating you a certain way that you can't see because you just have hearts in your eyes?
Yeah. You know how I keep talking about layoffs?
Yeah.
So I feel like there are simple ways to break up with someone, walk away from a dating situation. And I feel like these are things that people should try to put in practice. And here's how it goes. If you've been talking to someone for less than a month, I think a text message is sufficient.
Absolutely.
I think a simple text message saying, hey, Bob, or hey, Susie, had a great time meeting you and getting to know you. Unfortunately, I feel like we're not a good fit, but I wish you luck, and and then you walk away. I feel like that's reasonable.
1,000%.
Yeah. However, if you've been dating for more than a month, then maybe that person deserves a phone call or even a coffee chat, right? You sit down and you let them know, hey, Bob or Susie, these are the thoughts that have been on my mind. These are the emotions that I've been kind of battling with, and I feel like we might not be a good fit. What are your thoughts?
I don't know if I agree with that, because I think the way you just said it made it sound like they might have room to negotiate with you and convince you not to break up with them.
What do you think?
I personally probably wouldn't do a coffee chat. I would do a phone call.
After a month?
Yeah. I think a phone call is probably good enough. And if they wanted to meet for closure, maybe, but still be very firm, because I also hear stories of people who are kind of like, yeah, I kept trying to leave, but they would say, I'm so sorry, I'll never do it again. Yeah. And I think there's some situations that you just need to cold cut exit.
Yeah. So your HR department is more ruthless than mine.
We
have a standard procedure where we sit down with our employees and let them know that we are sending them off to a better life.
A better life because the life with you isn't a good match. So it's better because their match is somewhere else out there.
Go search. Yeah, let your wings fly,
Fly away from me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that would be my kind of, advice.
Departure.
Yeah, that'd be my advice. And I support your advice as well too, but I think people have to get more comfortable with firing the person they're dating, laying them off, letting them know that it's not a good fit, and focus on the next opportunity or focus on the right candidate, you know?
So what are your thoughts then on ghosting?
I think ghosting is disrespectful. No human should be ghosted. That is my rule of thumb on communication. Remember, we're adults. So adults should be able to have adult conversations and let people know that, unfortunately, this is not working and we have to part ways. Ghosting, I think, is disrespectful and immature.
Oh,
Don't ghost me. I will find you.
That's so tough. I do agree ghosting is disrespectful, or I think a different word I would use is unkind. I think it's unkind, and I would wish that people would be kind with me and be clear about how they feel. However, I think if something is ultra toxic and you've already stated your feelings to leave, that maybe ghosting, deleting a number, blocking on all social media, whatever. I think another important thing is when you do end it with somebody, in my opinion, you probably shouldn't, unless it, there's always an exception. Yeah. But you probably shouldn't be friends, and you probably shouldn't follow each other on social media, be friends on Facebook, whatever.
Don't entertain it.
Just move on.
Move on.
Like if they're not the person for you, but there was already some kind of romantic connection, cut ties. Yeah. I just think staying connected.
It's easier that way.
Yeah, I think it blurs the lines. And then when you do meet your person, but you're still chatting it up with an ex or something in your DMs, big red flag.
Yeah, there are 8 billion people on this earth. You don't need to be friends with the person you just broke up with that you met on Hinge 2 weeks ago.
1,000%.
There are more people to meet.
1,000%.
They're amazing.
That doesn't mean I've never ghosted anybody before, because I have.
Sure.
But I do think, as a mature adult now, that, you should be better and send a clear, concise, to the point, kind text.
Exactly. If it's toxic, obviously block.
Different story.
Ghost, walk away.
For sure.
Be kind.
Be kind. We all have feelings. And just because we're not the right fit for each other doesn't mean you're not the perfect, check all the boxes for somebody else. Yeah.
One of the 8 billion is out there waiting for you.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about our lists and being particular and what we're looking for, firing people, hiring the right person, etc. Given how prepared and, thorough we were.
Yeah.
What's one thing about marriage that no one warned you about, that you didn't know to look out for?
For me, it was being emotionally available all the time. Obviously, whenever you're single, you probably have more friends that are of your same gender. And so guys just aren't always that emotionally available for each other. Not saying it's a bad thing, it's probably just a male trait. But I guess what I'm saying is, women have these ebbs and flows emotionally, and obviously even with disagreements and how we deal with pain and hurt and tough conversations. I think that, there are a lot of things internally that happen, I think, in the female mind, the body, when these types of conversations are happening. So being emotionally available, I think, is something that is new to me, is being able to deal with these emotions and being able to face them in a kind way.
Your emotions or mine?
Your emotions. Yeah, absolutely. I think that is probably something that is new for sure.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think all the couples that we hang out with that are also kind of in a similar newly-ish married than us, that is something I've heard all the guys kind of say, that they weren't prepared for their wives' emotions.
Yeah.
Which is funny to me because as women, we're used to it. We're used to living with the hormones and having the highs and lows. So it's kind of funny to hear your perspective on it.
Yeah, I think that's that for me. I mean, I'm not sure how I would have gotten prepared for it. What's also funny is that when you're dating people, it's easy to hide some of these things.
So
because
true.
Maybe you're not living with them, therefore you're not with them 8 hours, or you're not with them 24 hours of the day.
Yeah.
So it's easy to hide those waves and ebbs of emotions.
Yeah.
And always put your best foot forward. But when you're married, you're with someone 24/7, pretty much. And therefore you see these things, but you don't just see them and can just observe from afar. You have to engage and get in the game, right? You can't just sit in the bleachers and enjoy the show. You have to get in the game and play the emotional game, per se.
It's funny you say that because that actually kind of ties into my answer.
Really?
When we were doing premarital counseling, something our marriage counselors said to us was enjoy the time you're engaged because that is the real honeymoon. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
Because once you get married, there's this wall that comes down that you don't even realize is there.
Wow.
Of politeness.
Yeah.
So once we got married, like, of course you still have a honeymoon phase and whatever, but once you're legally bound to somebody, there is a new opening that happens.
Yeah.
And kind of that same freeness and looseness that you might have with your family and how you fight or say something that you might not have said to your partner before because you weren't legally bound together forever.
Yeah.
And so something I was unprepared for was how bad a fight could be in marriage.
They can get pretty nasty.
Our first year of marriage, things came out of me while we were fighting that genuinely shocked me. I don't think I had cussed anyone out in 10 years prior.
Yeah.
And then we get married, and the way that you could push my buttons to stir up this visceral reaction, I felt at the time, the only thing that would really articulate my feelings was to tell you to F off, a lot of beep, beep, beeps, all the words. That shocked me because I remember after one of our first big fights, where I'm like crying the next 24 hours, we're not speaking. I remember Googling, can you come back from a fight this bad? Or do you have to get divorced? Because I genuinely, of course I had seen my parents fight. I didn't grow up in a household where they didn't fight around us.
Yeah.
But when you're personally experiencing the emotions and the pain and the targeting of a bad fight, I genuinely was like, how do you recover from this? And thankfully, I mean, maybe this is another episode topic in the future, but we had to learn how to fight in a healthy way that was constructive.
Exactly.
In the beginning, I think it was a no holds bar boxing match where we were going for blood.
Yeah.
We were going for the kill, the KO. And now, thankfully, I don't think we've had a fight like that in at least a year. But we had to learn how to get around that. And that was something I genuinely felt unprepared for.
Yeah.
I don't think people talk about how bad a fight could be, how personal and painful.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, I guess it depends on how people fight. Like, you were a little mean at the beginning, which also shocked me.
Really?
Because you're such a nice guy.
I'm such a nice guy.
But when you get triggered, this different side came out, and I was like, whoa, that hurt. Ouch. And it was just so different. So we've both had to learn how to fight healthy. And I don't think I've cussed you out now in at least a year.
And I've been a perfectly nice guy.
Progress. So yeah, that probably shocked me the most.
Yeah. I think another thing for me that I either wasn't prepared for, or maybe something that was new, was knowing that I would actually have more flexibility with my personal whole self in marriage.
Say more.
Well, a lot of times you get married. Well, hopefully not getting married a lot of times. But oftentimes people get married. And you tend to kind of think that you'll spend so much time with your spouse and always with your spouse. And you share all the same hobbies. You share all the same activities. And I think something that I guess wasn't also prepared for was, how much free and personal time that I would have, right? To keep up with my own hobbies, my own interests, my own activities, which to me was kind of nice to experience, but also a little bit new, Do
you think we're just going to be tied at the hip 24/7?
I'm not saying...
I mean, we kind of are.
Of course.
So the fact that you still have so much free time is amazing.
But it's a healthy balance.
It's right? We spend a lot of time together, but we also pursue our own hobbies and things.
Yeah, which is super important.
For sure.
So I think, in summary, the big takeaways from this conversation to me is being very diligent with who you pick to date. Make sure, one, you are hiring slowly, take your time, but fire quickly. So you're not roped into a 3-year-long dating relationship that sucks because you didn't break it off 3 weeks into it. And also being able to have a list and knowing what you want, knowing what you deserve, and going for that and nothing less.
And please stop settling. You deserve so much more. You are so special, so unique. You have so much value to add to the right person. And if nobody has shown that to you or made you feel that way, it just means you haven't met the right person for you that is going to love, appreciate, and desire all the qualities that you bring to the table. So you do not need to settle. It's better to wait longer for the right person than settle with somebody that not only isn't aligned with you, but doesn't appreciate who you are and what you bring to the table.
That's exactly it. I feel the exact same way.
So if you found this episode helpful, be sure to share with a friend, like and subscribe, because we will be back next week to mix things up and talk about our digital nomad journey, quitting our jobs, selling 90% of what we own to put the rest in a storage unit and travel the world.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about that next week and give you all the insights and tidbits on how to do it.
Oh, yeah.
Stay tuned. We're out.